Let me read to you a passage from the second chapter of St. Matthew's Gospel, verses 1 to 12. It's the Gospel for the Feast of the Epiphany in Christmastide. St. Matthew writes, "After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea, during the reign of King Herod, magi from the east came to Jerusalem and asked, 'Where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? We saw his star in the east and we have come to worship him.' When King Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him. When he had called together all the chief priests of the people and teachers of the law, he asked them where the Christ was to be born. 'In Bethlehem in Judea,' they replied, 'for this is what the prophet has written. But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for out of you will come a ruler who will be the shepherd of my people Israel.' Then Herod called the magi secretly and found out from them the exact time the star had appeared. He sent them to Bethlehem and said, 'Go and make a careful search for the child. As soon as you find him, report to me, so that I too may go and worship him.' After they had heard the king, they went on their way, and the star they had seen in the east went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed. On coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshipped him. Then they opened their treasures and presented him with gifts of gold and of incense and of myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route." That's from Matthew chapter 2, verses 1 to 12, for the Feast of the Epiphany. What does it suggest to us? Well, it suggests the Christian mission. What do I mean? Well, Epiphany is in the special liturgical season of Christmas, when we think of the gift to the world of our Redeemer. Our Redeemer has come and is now always to be with us. As we put ourselves back in those first days at Bethlehem, we think of how the promise of God was now fulfilled. God had promised his chosen people that he would send to them a Messiah who would shepherd his people. He would be the good shepherd long predicted. And now the Messiah had come. But there was something more. This promised Messiah was not only for God's own chosen people, he was for all the nations. He was for the world. And this is powerfully suggested in the events recorded in the Gospel. When our Lord was born, it was to Jewish shepherds that the angels announced the news. But the Gospel records that soon after, pagan wise men from the east were led by a star to the promised king. Both groups represented the two worlds, the Jewish and the non-Jewish. Both were to be offered the salvation Christ would bring. It is the whole non-Jewish world, of which all of us are members, that we think of today. When the angels appeared to the shepherds, the whole night sky was filled with light. When the star appeared to the wise men from the east, there was less light, but light there was. Both together symbolized the light of the gospel, shining upon all the nations, Jewish and Gentile. The star leading the wise men to the infant Jesus was only an external sign leading to him. Faith is the light that enlightens our hearts with the truth of Christ the Redeemer. This light of faith is a wonderful gift from God, which we take for granted all too easily. It is this light of faith which has gone out to all the nations. And in most Sunday Mass congregations in Australia at least, numerous nations are represented. They have received the light of faith, which we celebrate on the Feast of the Epiphany. In the second reading for this day, from the letter to the Ephesians chapter 3, St. Paul, full of joy, is speaking of the secret, long hidden, that through Christ the chosen people were now to be given many brothers from among the Gentiles. Through the gospel, we too share in the blessings of the prophets and the promises and the Messiah. We are all part of God's chosen people on the way to salvation. The proclamation of the gospel is the new star shining in the life of the church. It is by our faith that we are led to accept it, and we are able to accept it. And it is able to lead all peoples to Christ and the glory of heaven. Our faith. This is particularly relevant for today. We are called to send the light of the gospel to the whole world, calling all men and women to follow Christ. We have inherited the role of the wise men who gave a shining example of fidelity in following the star of faith. In the gospel account, the wise men from the east revealed the coming of Christ even to the Jewish people whose faith had dimmed. Our life should be like a star leading others to Christ. The faith has been carried through the world and through the centuries, not just by missionaries, but by the movement and migration of many peoples. Australia has been greatly enriched by deeply committed Christians from other countries who have made their home among us. We must make sure that our star shines brightly in our families and in society. Let us examine ourselves. Does the light of my faith shine brightly with good deeds, with love and with charity? Let us call on our noblest impulses to raise high the light of our faith to all. We have a duty to Christ our eternal King. Let us each year make Christian family life shine forth like a star of faith, like the star shining for the wise men. Let us think of what the Christ child would say to his disciples years later, just before he ascended into heaven. No longer a child now, but a man who'd gone through the passion, now risen from the dead. All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Go therefore to the whole world and make disciples of all the nations, baptizing them and teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. And behold, I am with you to the end of the world.